Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining XROM Podcast. I'm your host, Eddie Avil, and XROM Podcast was designed with a singular vision, and that is to shape, celebrate, and showcase India's AR/VR MR growth story, and to help you understand about this transformational technology which holds potential to change the way we live, work, and play. Today, I have with me Srikant Nayak, one of the early movers of AR/VR in the country. He's been part of companies such as Happy Finish and Fountainhead Marketing. Presently, he freelances as a creative technologist and an XR specialist. I wish you enjoyed this conversation. So, tell me, what you been up to at this point in time?
Basically, right now, a lot of my time goes in understanding where AR, VR, XR is going,
Right.
and basically just connecting with the world of the people who actually execute the products,
Right.
rather than the people who go out and try to sell things without
Right.
knowing about it.
Right.
So I like to be where the action is happening in the XR space,
Right.
and that consumes a lot of my time working with developers to make good immersive projects.
Right. So tell me, I mean, since you said you are in touch with directly the developers, the content creators, the people who are actually making the content rather than the ones who market the stuff. So I'm sure you must have met some exciting developers and content creators. So is there any experience which you want to talk about at this point in time?
I think the better of the developers, the ones who are really the innovative and the creative ones, kind of understand the balance between technology and creativity. And that intersection is where most of the magic happens. So, for example, people who I worked with on the Tiago project, I worked with DOPs from UK, from our UK office. I worked with developers in India, UI designers, and people who work in Unity. So it's an eclectic mix of people, and the one thing that they all have in common is this being at the juncture of creativity and technology.
Right.
So today, a developer need not necessarily know just how to write code, but should understand the aesthetics of creating something that is immersive, and that's I mean I've worked with a lot of developers, thankfully, who have that
Mixed blend of
mixed blend. Yeah.
So tell me, can you give us a little bit more about talk more about Tiago VR, because that's been one of the most talked about experience in India, at least when it comes to VR.
Yeah. So that's something I did with Happy Finish when I used to work with them. Happy Finish was uniquely positioned at the time to create immersive content because they had a CGI team, they had a retouching team, and they had what we call now the interactive team. I was the first employee there for Interactive in India. It's a UK-based company. And the Tiago VR experience was something that really kick-started our interactive division. That project was under the wraps because of the involvement of Lionel Messi. He was the brand ambassador Tata had just tied up with. And the project that we really worked on had a lot to do with 360-degree video. It wasn't really VR as we have come to now define it.
Right.
It's 360-degree video, which was packaged in an app and then delivered to people. That delivery part of it, that last mile that we call in VR, was the toughest part because that they wanted to launch it to as many metros in India as possible and get as many eyeballs to it as possible. The actual video of the Tiago car in a 360-degree environment. So the plan was to kind of package these DIY headsets, VR headsets, along with newspapers. And on a certain day, the newspaper, when you opened it up, there'd be a big ad about the Tiago car. And you get this nifty little headset that you can kind of assemble, download the app on your phone, put it in there, and view the experience. And that was by far one of the most challenging projects I worked on because it was a multi-agency project. There were a lot of agencies involved, as you can imagine. Print, there was a media angle to it. There was Happy Finish. Tata itself was all over the place in terms of trying to get these people together. And it worked out fairly well because the video got a lot of attention. It made a big splash on social media. And people were really excited about getting the opportunity to have this headset they can assemble themselves. It was branded, so it made a lot of sense to the brand itself. And that kind of set in motion a chain of events that really got a lot of eyeballs even from outside. I mean, I remember Robert Scoble, who is this great influencer and a great evangelist for extended reality and spatial computing. He was in India just after that campaign was launched, and he actually reviewed it for us. He was kind enough to review it, and he had some really lovely words to say about it, which was a great kind of feedback that we got. And it made a big splash, and I was very happy about it. We were all ecstatic. Tata was also super happy about the entire project.
Lovely, beautiful. And this was back in 2016, right?
Yes.
What do you think is a problem? I mean, it's three years down the line, and still we haven't done something as cool as that.
I think the problem really is that there is a lack of, I wouldn't say confidence, but people need to be bold about what it is that we want to achieve as a country in the XR space. And I specifically mean the XR space at this moment because a lot of different things are happening across different technologies, and India is doing really well in that space.
Right.
But what's happening with XR is it's kind of left to the advertising side of things. Now, a lot of tech companies are doing a lot of work in augmented reality, virtual reality in India, and but I don't see the results kind of showing. Now, that is something that is of concern, and I think it should concern everyone in the industry because there is sporadic work, there's isolated work that's happening, but it's not really pointed at something to create either a great product or a great service. It's not really in that space right now. And I mean, the Tiago project, although it was just a very small part of what could have now been, it really kickstarted a lot of things because there was a little bit of confidence. In fact, there was a lot of confidence involved in saying that, yes, we will launch 2.3 million headsets into the market on one day. I mean, that's a big, bold step. Right now, what's happening is that, at least on the XR side of things, a lot of things are being left to advertising companies and the media companies out there. The tech companies really need to step in and take the initiative forward because on the advertising side, you must understand that things happen on a campaign level. They don't happen on a product level, and things need to be on a product level where there needs to be a vision that this is what we are going to aim. This is where AR, VR, and mixed reality is headed. So we need a proper vision for that, and we need a constant iterative cycle to get there. That is missing at the point. Uh, I mean, there. I think a lot of people, a lot of elements in this are to blame, but it's not really going to work out unless we step out of that campaign side of things, in my opinion, because brand managers, by the time they are assigned a budget, by the time they decide what to do with that budget, it's 3 months to Diwali. You know, it's late, and that's when all your peak campaigns happen. So that's not enough time to execute something good. So the industry really needs to recognize that there needs to be a larger, longer vision, and that vision needs to be constantly iterated upon because there's so many different things happening in the field right now. It's hard to kind of keep track of things, but it is important that you have a team in place to keep track of things and keep building on it as a product.
So yes, obviously there's this hype about all of these new emerging technologies, whether it's XR or AI, and because of the hype, these companies are trying to adopt it. But like you rightfully said, they're not understanding the how and the why and the reason, of adopting these technologies. So tell me, besides Tiago, I mean, is there any experiences that you would like to talk about?
Besides,
Has been memorable.
Yeah, I would say that I've had the opportunity to work on a lot of projects, and a bulk of them have been with Tata. So I've been like very fortunate to work with Tata. It's an amazing company. They have a lot of vision for the future, disjointed at times, but it's more or less there, and I think they will be a leader in that space. Yes, I would like to talk about something I did as recent as last year. We did this experience center at the Tata's headquarters, which is Bombay House, located in Fort in Mumbai. Basically, they wanted to convert a portion of the ground floor into an experience center, and they had a vision for different installations that would showcase the future of where Tata is going, what they are going to do across their various businesses. and they wanted to use different technology mediums to convey that. Now, whether it's a big screen, it's a curved screen showing a video, or it's a live Twitter feed, Twitter wall, which you can interact with, or whether it's touch screens and touch tables and things like that, all of which are currently there in Bombay House. One of those segments I had the privilege to work on, which is called Tata Future Zone. It is something that most people would, I mean, most people in our industry would at least call it a VR cave. It is it's a cubic room in which you stand in real life, and the walls are being projected on. There are videos being projected on the walls with touch sensors enabled in the wall.
Nice.
And it's basically showing a video of the future of Tata. I can't really get into it because it's something that I mean, if they want someone to experience, that's when they would want them to know the story. But basically, a story is played out across the three walls and the floor. So it seems like a seamless kind of canvas where you're watching this panoramic video that we created, and it's uh, one of those things that really immerses you without the need for a headset. And it's something that not just showcases the future of Tata, but the future of experiential design in a way, or even retail. Like, you know, it's a useful tool. A VR cave is a useful tool for retail to use. So that was a very, very challenging project. It involved Unity, it involved CGI, it involved the entire video production pipeline, VFX, and networking. I mean, we had to make these 4 projectors, 5 projectors kind of work in tandem to display these videos on top of it. So, and add to that the layer of interactivity, of course. It's fantastic exposure to a lot of different things that made one product kind of stand out in that experience, the Tata Experience Center.
Right, lovely. So, what do you think is the future of experiential design?
I I personally am more. I think it's a question that's best uh, left unanswered at the moment, because there are so many different things happening right now that it's hard to kind of predict in which way it will go. I personally believe that retail is going to drive a lot of the innovations in the space, because you have a lot of big companies who are retail companies who are also tech companies. Amazon and now Walmart are getting into it. Flipkart is there. Not exactly Flipkart, but like, you know, Amazon and Walmart. These guys are going to lead the innovation on that front. Specific things I'll be cautious enough not to get into, because there's way too many things happening right now that are just super exciting to see that kind of cohesive future building up.
Where do you see the future of consumers, your retail? How do we end up interacting with products?
I think it's going to be there is going to be a tangible aspect to all of it. I mean, the like looking at a product and touching it, feeling it, that is always going to be there. So at some point, you will have to get the product in physically in the hands of the consumer or in front of them. That being said, I'm really excited about the future of glasses, right? And how that is going to play out in the future of spatial computing. Because I feel that right now, I mean, we are currently living that life where we don't need to go to a place to get something, you know, that convenience of having it delivered to us while browsing for other things online and just having our phones in our pocket all the time. That is a fantastic thing to have. How it will improve in the future is something that I think AR is going to drive in a very, very big way, because and that is why I would imagine that these companies are spending a lot of money trying to get into making people experience products. It's a On the hardware side of things, I think it's a little challenging to kind of assess right now how haptics will play a role in it, how probably IoT will play a role in it. Like if your shelf is empty at home and you need to get some products, how is that going to, you know, how is that information going to be sent across to, let's say, a Walmart, and they're going to refresh the stocks for you? those things are a little hazy at the moment, but I'm pretty optimistic about the future of AR in that space.
So why do you think there's Indians somehow are not leaders when it comes to building technology, right? I mean, we export most of our top thought leaders are leading some of these global tech behemoths. But yes, I mean, right, like you said, that I'm being optimistic, and I hope that in 7 to 10 years, maybe there's a startup that's building a fantastic product and they solve all the problem. But what do you think when you make a statement like that, that Indians are still, what do you think is a drawback? I mean, why is some good quality products not coming out of India?
I think the problem really is that the leaders at the top need to understand that it is not something, development of experiences like immersive experiences or development of products that are immersive in nature that have tendencies to kind of uh, affect the purchasing power of purchasing aspect. These things need to be driven from the top. Now, unfortunately, the top is still kind of stuck with the traditional way of doing things. It is the mid-level management, the people at the bottom, the developers who really understand. At least the developers definitely do understand what is the way forward and how it needs to be done. But once it starts going up the ladder, it just starts diminishing in the kind of value it should have, the idea, because I would say that it needs to come from the top, and even some of the companies that I've worked with in the past, the idea needs to not just come from the top. It needs to come with a plan, and that plan needs to be well discussed. Right now, that's not happening in our industry. Even like Google, for example, has set up a division for AR and VR in India, but it's not really utilizing the talent of the incredible developers that we have in our country. It's a land of great developers, I would say.
Very true.
And the middle class is, I mean, we have the largest youngest population in the world. So it needs to understand that this unusual and yet exciting paradigm that India has is something that needs to be explored well. Right now, I'm not seeing that, and it's hard to kind of guess when that will start coming in from the top.
Where do you think there's a problem? I mean, do they see that this market is, I mean, we Indians cannot afford? Is that could be one of those reason? But the urban population, I think, is pretty much open to exploring these new products, right? What do you think could be the reason why these guys are still not exploring India as a market in its complete full force?
I think the problem, not the problem really, I wouldn't say that they are not looking at it entirely right now. Just the fact that big companies, you would have never thought of IKEA in India, right? You would have never thought of Walmart coming to India, purchasing, literally buying out Flipkart, buying a stake in them. So you would never have imagined these things, but it's happening because they realize that the population is a bulk of the population is young, and we are all getting onto our smartphones. We are all digital now, and you look at the way even the simple digital payments. You look at how that has grown in India, right? People are paying on WhatsApp now. People are paying through government, through bank, online banking and things like that. It was not there. If you notice, like 5 6 years back, it was very rarely used. People were not kind of into online banking and things like that. Now the consumer is getting smart, and the consumer is on platforms like Hotstar, for example. They are on these platforms, OTT platforms. Data is getting cheaper, so they can consume this content on their mobile phones, which are also getting cheaper. So there is that influx that's happening right now of technology within our lives that is kind of taking is grabbing the attention of the bigger companies out there. And those are the big companies have to be the players that initiate this change. It cannot start as like a local movement and kind of expect it to grow, because adoption of these technologies is something that the big companies can control. Like, for example, 5G, right? 5G will be a game changer for the XR community and developers.
Right.
It's something that I wouldn't say they aren't looking at it. I think that there needs to be a maturity in the consumers, and probably they are waiting for that maturity to come in. obviously government regulations and things that happen on the political side have a impact on that decision of theirs. But I think they're waiting for a maturity of the market and of the consumer.
Right. You mentioned government. So China has a plan chalked out. I think 2025 plan chalked out for AR, VR, MR plus AI plus quantum computing. India has its plan chalked out for AI and other technologies, but somehow there's nothing for XR at this point in time. Do you see that as a problem?
I think, I mean, if you look at the government side of things, I don't think it's a big problem because the industry will do what the industry has to. And where the money is where the industry is going to be. So I don't think the government's initiative at this point really matters. It would matter to the bigger players in the market in terms of FDI regulations and things like this, where investments need to come in to the country, and if that is the market is open for all investors from outside to come in, I think that makes a very valuable proposition for them, because obviously we are a huge market. Now, China, I think, is way ahead of us in this aspect, and
Very true.
And they have technology leaders who actually influence policy out there. Right over here, it's hard to kind of think of a technology leader influencing policy. I mean, they have their seminars and stuff like this, but you don't know one name, one big tech giant who is like in there trying to, say that, okay, we need to focus on emerging technologies right now. That's not happening. But in terms of government influence or regulations or anything, or even initiatives from their end, I don't think the industry is going to look to that, because it's something that they wouldn't expect, they wouldn't want. They would want to just be left to themselves, as businesses always do. They want to be left to themselves to kind of explore markets and make money. And that is going to fuel the ecosystem. Again, the challenge with that is needs to come from the top of those businesses and percolate down to every single employee that we are digital first, we are industry 4.0 first, and it's not just going to come through PPTs and PDFs being circulated. It has to be a grassroots kind of initiative that has to uh, be percolated from the top.
Right. So you've been with Happy Finish, you've been with Fountainhead, and you've done some really nice, well-known, immersive tech campaigns, right? What has been your experience with advertising agencies, and how open are they to this coming shift of immersive advertising?
I think they are very open, and that is a very good sign at the moment, because a lot of the people I speak with within the advertising industry, they recognize the importance. The problem really is that they are not exposed to how things are created. Now, I'll give you an example. Tata Tiago, right? That was a very interesting project for several different reasons, and primarily challenging because of the scale. Now, within the partners, the ecosystem that Tata had created for that campaign, we were working with different partners, many of whom were traditional advertising companies. To explain things to them is far more challenging, because they come with that traditional mindset, right?
Right.
Like a creative director at a ad agency has mostly worked with 2D or print, like video, 2D video or print. 360-degree video, challenging to
Challenging,
understand.
right.
Like you don't have you.
Yeah.
It's not just this
Yeah.
frame that you're looking at, right?
Yeah.
There's an entire canvas for you to play with.
Right.
So these are some of the challenges that the industry faces in terms of people are up to date on broad level ideas like augmented reality, virtual reality. They understand what it is. They know about headsets. For some reason, Google Cardboard is still, it comes up in every single conversation till today. It's 2019, and people are still talking about Google Cardboard in India, whereas we have advanced way beyond that now with the Oculus
This
Go's
Quest.
and the Quests and all of the world. But the problem again, move towards the news. Understand where the news is coming from, what the news is, and how do I consume what is being put out there by developers and by big companies who are doing AR Core, AR Kit, all these things. Understand how those points connect, because unless you do that, you will be still stuck in that traditional way of thinking where you feel like, okay, we need to do a campaign, we'll do a TVC for it, we'll do a couple of billboards for it, we'll do a couple of brochures, some marketing collateral. Where is the immersive technology? Bring that component in, and to bring it in, you need to understand it. It's not like a 2-week execution, right? It takes a little bit of time to make some great products. So that is really missing at the point, and I'm hoping that through your initiative here, this message will get out to a lot of people and they will start exploring this.
So tell me, AR, VR, MR, there's a lot of discrimination between all of these three, right? So eventually, personally, I see that there'll be like one single wearable device which will converge your phones and your mobile, and it'll be one single wearable device which will be called maybe XR or whatever, but it'll be for AR, VR, MR. But right now, since AR is being touted as the next big thing because we already have a medium and we don't need to additionally buy something like a VR headset or MR headset, it becomes more reasonable. So what is it that you're doing in AR? Can you share something that you've been doing in AR, which present day and building some impact?
Right now, I'm working a lot with AR Core, AR Kit, Foundation AR, which is Unity's kind of foray into AR SDKs. Working a lot with that and with developers. I can't really share what we are working on right now, but I'll explore some of the. I'll just outline some of the things that the features that we kind of work with. In like facial tracking, that is super important right now because in the near term, brands are going to adopt that in a big way. Spark AR, which is Facebook's AR platform. I'm hugely optimistic about Spark AR because, especially because it's a Facebook product. And although I'm not such a great fan of some of the things Facebook does, but I'm a huge fan of the community that they have built of developers and the larger ecosystem that they have, which is Facebook as an app itself, Messenger, WhatsApp, and Instagram. These four basically connect every single one of us, right? In some way or the other, we all have these apps on our phones. And Spark AR, which is their initiative, is super important right now because, especially because of the number of people that thing is going to be rolled out to. So I've seen very, very interesting examples of facial mapping, eye tracking, iris tracking. All of these features are built into Spark AR, and it's given some fantastic results. I've seen people playing AR games with their eyes, like controlling a character with their eyes. I've seen them play the game 2048 with just nods and these kind of gestures. It is going to be immensely valuable to brands in the near future. And I would, if I could give one single piece of advice to brand managers in the near future, I would say keep an eye out for Spark AR because it's going to come out of nowhere. It's in closed beta right now. It's going to come out of nowhere and it's just going to overtake the market. I mean, like the way 360 video just suddenly became big and then it just suddenly just died out. It's going to be kind of like that. Spark AR is going to come in. It's going to take a chunk of money from the market. So you better be on that bandwagon.
Completely. So yeah, even I'm with you on this. And yes, Facebook, especially for the VR space, I don't think VR would have it been where it is currently at if not for Facebook and if not for Mark Zuckerberg acquiring Oculus, right? And his vision for AR, VR, MR, and his dedication and push to drive it till where it is right now. And I completely acknowledge that Facebook has done that. And on the other hand, I also obviously know that they've made some bad moves where it's cost them some serious problem. Now tell me, with these AR, VR headsets in the near-term future, which you said can do all of these things, it's going to do inside, outside tracking. Now, wherever you walk, it's going to capture the entire world. It's going to capture all details too. What does it do to a world or a personal data when we're capturing so much information? There's going to be hordes of data. And when there's organizations who do not respect data, personal data, where does it leave us?
it leaves us in a very bad place. And that is something that really scares everyone in the industry right now, and people on the street. It just scares. It's a very scary proposition, knowing how much data is being collected. And when you add something like AR to the mix,
Right, yeah. Right now it's just
or
the phone, so they don't even know. Tomorrow, when it comes to a glasses, it's going to
yeah,
capture everything.
exactly. And computer vision is another thing that
Right.
uh, it's a scary proposition to think about. There needs to be a global mandate, and regulations like GDPR is a good step, I feel. It really keeps checks and balances in place for the big companies not to toy around with data that they collect. Advertising is a hugely important part of the global ecosystem,
Right.
and data fuels that advertising, targeting and data fuels that advertising, so it's not going to go away. But while it's there, it needs to be used prudently. It needs to be captured and stored in several different encryption formats and not be accessible to anyone, even the company itself. Government interference is another thing we all worry about. uh, so I'm optimistic that these problems will be solved. How they are solved is something that is undergoing a lot of debate at the moment, and I'm not sure where that will lead. But I know that like calmer heads and a good sense will prevail, and that's how the industry has always moved forward. And I always believe in that sense of optimism. But yeah, it is kind of scary. And I mean, the moment we like Google Glasses, for example, Google Glass, it was a product that was way ahead of its
It's time.
time when it launched. And I remember trying it on when I was in the US. I had the opportunity to try it on, and it blew me away. Like, it's a simple device, and it does like at that point a small subset of things. It wouldn't do a lot of things, but it kind of blew me away. And the first thing I remember thinking to myself is, how does someone know if I am recording them? Like, how do they know if I'm recording? How do they know what if I look at someone and facial tracking kind of gets a whole bunch of their information pulled off the cloud and streamed right to my eye over here? How do they know all this?
Yeah.
And that is why I think Google Glass was pulled off the shelf, was pulled out of the market, because it got to a point where people were scared. And I heard of instances where people would grab glasses off of others' faces because they thought they were being recorded and stuff. It's a tough question. It's a tough question, and it's something that people should be constantly aware of as consumers, how their data is being used, and how companies can really uh, work with the community to solve some of these tough questions.
Any advice to the ones who are listening, developers, content creators, or advertising agencies, and any moonshot, if any?
Sure. So, my real advice to you, my most honest advice I can give is, be aware of what's happening in the market, because there is a ton of different things happening. You don't need to keep up to date with all of them, but you need to know on a broad level how it impacts. And that impact is not just going to be on your life, it's going to be on the lives around you. Everyone in the world is going to be impacted by it, in a business sense, in a privacy sense, in a personal sense. It's all going to happen. And right now, my biggest advice is, stay in touch with what's happening. Keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on. AR is something that you need to specifically focus on, and this is for the developers out there. I am hugely optimistic of AR and the progress that is happening in that space. So keep an eye out for what's happening. Try to learn. Unity is doing some fantastic things for people in India to kind of move the market ahead, move the ecosystem ahead. So that is something that just be aware of. That is my advice. Be aware. It will come in handy at some point or the other. And in terms of a personal moonshot from my side, uh, at this point, I just want to create something for AR glasses. And AR glasses, I mean, I wouldn't call them AR glasses, just glasses or some wearable technology that, like you rightfully mentioned, converges all these different things. The industry is missing a killer app right now. And killer apps like productivity apps like Word and Excel, that pushed the market back in the 80s and 90s. It kind of took up took the industry on a paradigm shift that said these are the killer apps. These are going to be used 20, 30, 50, 100 years from now. uh, I was very excited about Google Earth VR when it came out. I thought this would be a killer app because not just like they're creating a metaverse of sorts, right? The entire world replicated, a digital twin of the entire world. Imagine the possibilities if you could just fly down to a store and enter a store and probably interact with a digital avatar of the store owner, or go to a coffee shop and explore it and see real time footage of what's going on in there. The possibilities of that were endless. However, that didn't turn out to be the killer app. So my personal moonshot would be a killer app that I can develop. What it is right now, it's still brewing in my mind.
So on that note, yeah, wish you all the very best for the
Thank
killer app, and I hope the killer app comes very soon.
Thank you.
And I hope that killer app blows and push drives this AR VR adoption forward. Yeah. So thank you for being part of XRM podcast. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Lovely to speaking with you.
So if you like what you see or you like what you hear, please press the subscribe button. I'm going to have all the information of Srikant Nayak below. You can connect with him, interact with him, because this is what the platform it's all about. It's about building a community, interacting with each other, and getting to know each other, helping each other, and moving forward and growing the ecosystem forward. And like Srikant rightfully mentioned, that you need to be aware about these technologies, be it XR or be it other technologies. You need to be aware how you can use this, and information and knowledge. Once you have the information, possibly you'll know how to use this and make your life better. So on that note, see you guys next time. Ciao. Bye-bye.